Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Cybersecurity Amplified and Intensified. Today we have with us Daniel Stenberg. Hey, Daniel, how are you?
Hello. Good to be here.
Thanks. If you don't mind starting off with giving the listeners and the viewers a little background on yourself.
Well, I am a Swedish software engineer. I'm mostly known for being the founder and maintainer of the cURL project that I've been doing for 24 years soon, under the name cURL at least. So yeah, I'm a developer. I've done a lot of things over the years, and I work on cURL full time now since 3 years back.
Okay. And one of the reasons that I came across you is recently there was the log4j issues back in, I think, December through January. And I came across a tweet where a company was asking you for a full rundown on what is in an open source project you worked on. And I believe you replied along the lines of, well, we don't have a support contract, so let's talk about that first.
Correct. And well, I think in this particular case, it shows so many different levels of, I don't know, immaturity or presumptions in large companies or something. Because, well, it started out by, of course, they didn't ask about a particular project that I've written. They emailed me, assuming we're talking about the project them and I know about, which is, I think it's fun because they just email me. I actually do more than one product. So what are we talking about? And then, of course, I don't have any business association with this company, which happens to be a super big, it's a top 100 Fortune company. So it's a multi-billion company. And of course, we don't have any relationship at all. I actually didn't even know the company existed when they emailed me. I had to, Google what kind of company is this actually, and I realized that, wow, they're super big. So, and I'm also quite used to the fact that companies find me, or not only companies, but people in general find me because they find my email address in somewhere in a product that is using code that I've written, because my email address tend to end up in many places because it's in the license of open source stuff that I've written. So it sort of followed a line of many other emails. And then they asked me about details about log4j in my products. And then we get into the technical details, right? That's a Java library for logging. And I've never done any Java. I've never touched log4j. Nothing I've ever been involved with in my entire life have ever been close to log4j. So it seemed like the detachment from asking me about that, it seemed completely unreal. So probably they have, gathered a long list of email addresses from products they have or use or ship or whatever, and email everyone there. And that included me then as an open source author, because probably some products they use use a component that I've written. So just a sort of a multi-layer cake of confusion and silliness.
Okay. How'd you get started in open source, and why open source as opposed to, I guess, what I would consider for-profit? I like for-profit, by the way.
Right. I don't mind open source for-profit, but it's a long story. It started a long time ago. So I actually started my sort of career as a software engineer in the early 1990s. Well, 1993, I got my first software engineering job. And at that time, that was even before the term open source was coined, right? So, but at that time, of course, open source existed, or free source code to stuff. And I appreciated that, and I enjoyed it, and I played with it already then, because I thought software engineering and programming is fun. So I did it in my spare time, and I did it as a full-time job as well. And then I fiddled around with doing some projects in my spare time over the years. And then when I just wanted to do another little cool tool toy for my own personal gain or sort of use, it was sort of natural and came. I wanted to be part of the open source movement, or also produce open source stuff like the others apparently do. So it wasn't I really didn't think about it much. Of course, it would be open source, because doing that would enable me to, it would enable the tool or the stuff I work on to go far beyond what I could do just myself. We could sort of, as a community, make it go much further and become something much bigger than just little me can do.
Okay. Now, you said you started back in 1993 as a...
Yeah, that was my first gig as a full-time developer.
You've been around long enough to see evolving cybersecurity needs. And how has that affected how you produce open source product, as well as the time requirements required to, I guess, support these products as cybersecurity requirements advance?
Well, I think it has gradually first, of course, it has become as of a sort of a maturity in my own way of developing code, and as an industry as a whole as well. So I think we're doing things over the years. We have sort of learned and realized that we need to pay attention to certain things more, better, and earlier in the process of writing code. And I think it is a big difference to how we did it back in the early 90s. It was sort of, looking back at it, it seems really silly and immature to do it the way we did. But things like, we have these days, we do all these constant integration testing much earlier. We do that nonstop all the time while developing. We have much better tools. We have much better scrutiny and review processes, and sort of established procedures in much better ways to make sure that we actually do things with quality and security already from the first line of code, right? So I think it actually has changed all over the line. And for someone who's also, since I work primarily writing code in C, which is also an unsafe language, I also see that, of course, a lot of solutions is going to other languages, memory safe languages, or other managed languages that don't let you shoot yourself in the foot as easily as C does.
Okay. And now you said that you are working primarily or mainly on the cURL project?
Yes.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, it was my spare time project for many, many years, and until I quit Mozilla in 2018, and then I decided I want to try to make it a living, to actually spend all my days working on cURL. So then I joined wolfSSL. So now I work for wolfSSL, and we sell cURL support and cURL services really to anyone who pays for it.
I have been using cURL for a very long time. Now, my main line of business is managed services. So we use a lot of, we use RMM products like a Datto, a ConnectWise. Are you familiar with those?
Nope.
It's basically a command and control infrastructure. So we put an agent onto client computers, and we can do remote support, remote commands, do whatever we like. And I was going through my library of scripts prior to this call. I don't think I have any deployment scripts that are not using cURL, quite honestly.
Right.
And, when I came across that tweet I mentioned earlier about you, it was nice to kind of put a face to the name of a product that I use, and a product that I used ignorantly, not knowing that I should probably be supporting it, when I finally realized how much I actually use it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's out there. It's widely used.
And it's a fantastic product for whoever's listening. Support.
Right, and it's been out, and we've sort of been working on it for such a long time, so we have polished it pretty well. It's for most people, it's just there. It does what it needs to do, and it's been doing that for a long time. I talk to a lot of users who are basically asking me, when I say that I work on cURL full time, they ask me, "What do you do?" I mean, it's already there. It did the same thing 10 years ago, and it still does it today. So what do you do all day?
What do you do all day?
Yeah, what do I do? Fiddling my thumbs. No, but there's a lot of things going on beneath the surface, right? So for me, it's more of a mark of approval that we actually make it appear as if nothing has changed from the outside, right? All the command line options, they work the same way. It behaves mostly the same way as it did from the beginning, but things constantly evolve and change on the internet, right? Like everything else, we need to adapt and constantly upgrade things as we learn to do things new ways on the internet. The browsers suddenly decide that we should never do this anymore, and then all the sites will say, no, we will ban these versions of TLS, or we will no longer accept certificates that look like this, or we are going to talk about the new HTTP version tomorrow, and it's like this. So there's this constant, there are constant tiny changes, and there are these every now and then larger steps in the development that we need to take to follow the rest of the internet and make sure that curl can do transfers and in the security we want and the way we want and need. So there's that. And then there's, of course, when you do, we estimate that curl, or libcurl rather, the library then is in somewhere around 10 billion installations worldwide, which is a mind-bogglingly large number. But that also makes it, that is fantastic and a sort of more of a dream come true, but it also makes it ends up in a lot of niche cases like that nobody has used in before, and weird cases, strange networks, strange surroundings. So there are also a lot of people find bugs in all sorts of weird ways because they happen to end up in a situation nobody ever thought about when we wrote that feature 12 years ago. So there's a lot of that too.
Now, when I woke up this morning, one of the first few things was I go onto YouTube to see what's on my cover page, and I saw you guys, or perhaps you yourself, put out a video. There's a new curl update.
Yes, we did it. Yeah, I did it a few days ago.
Okay. What's new in this update?
So first, we do releases very frequently. Typically, we try to do them every 8 weeks. So it's sort of so we do have a rather fast pace of doing releases. And so normally then when we do releases, we don't have a large number of news because we do them so frequently. So we just slowly trickle out new things, really spread out over many releases. But in this particular release, we actually have a feature that I know a lot of people are interested in, and that we're adding a new command line option, which isn't rare because we have a lot of them, but we're adding the one called --JSON as a shortcut and a simpler way to send JSON to servers using curl.
I think I can use that in a few places very well.
Right, because a lot of server endpoints or REST APIs or whatever you send JSON to, they also want you to send the right content type header and the right accept header. So to do that on a command line is a little bit of a quirky thing to do, and you have to provide those different options to make it behave properly. And this --JSON option is a shortcut to do that in an easier, more convenient way.
Okay. And now that you're working on curl full time, how can people support the project? Because I saw you put a tweet out this morning that donations are nice, and I'm paraphrasing here, people. So these are my words, not Daniel's. It doesn't pay the bills.
It is exactly that way. I get that question sometimes. What do you do? Of course, donations are great, and I appreciate them, and we use them for curl-related stuff. Usually, we use donations, for example, to fund our bug bounty program, so that we pay security researchers monetary rewards when they report security problems. And I think that's an awesome way to stimulate them and give them sort of the incitement to actually go look for security problems. So that's a great way. But typically we don't get donations to the level that they can actually pay for developers, because then we need donations at a much higher scale than we do now. So sure, donations are good and appreciated, but what pays my bills is companies paying me or for full support or services around curl, because that takes the amount of money to another level that actually can then pay my salary, actually, so that I get food on the table.
How big is your team?
Well, I'm the only one who's getting paid to work on curl. So I'm the only I'm the only one who's doing it full time. I'm the only one at wolfSSL who works on curl as a developer. But then, of course, curl is open source, and we recently surpassed 1,000 commit authors in the repository. So there's a lot of people who have contributed code. Of course, most people have only contributed code once.
Right.
So that, you know, the tail is enormously long here. And I think people who have actually committed code 100 times, that's more than 40 people, or maybe 25 or so. So it's a small set of people who actually do more than just a little in the project. So
what kind of support do people get when they pay for it?
Usually, well, my regular sales pitch is more like, if you have a company and you have a product or a device or whatever, as many companies do, that use libcurl in ways, then sort of some portion of your development team needs to understand libcurl. You have to use libcurl, interact with libcurl, and you run into problems with curl or internet transfers every now and then. And then I could be there to, you know, offload, ask me about the problems. I can fix the problems for you, solve issues, work on bugs, add the missing features you lack, and stuff like that. Because for me, it's a natural that it would actually be a win-win for many companies to not waste a lot of time on curl problems, but hand them over to me instead, and I could, you know, solve them for them in a much shorter time, and probably you know, answer the questions they have so that they can go on with doing things, other things with their time, instead of wasting them on curl stuff. But usually my I would say the larger amount of customers I get, they arrive in my inbox, they get to me, they sign up for a support contract after they run into some kind of curl problems, bugs, issues that make them, you know, stop or get stuck somehow. And then I say, yeah, sure, I can help you out with this, and let's set up a support deal, and I help them with their bug, and they get stuck with it, or they stay with a support contract, because then realize that the next time we end up in this situation, we can sort of shorten the time and just ask me, and we can fix the problem in a much shorter time and less friction.
Okay. Are there any other? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But the interesting thing is that it's rarely that companies approach me before they have that initial problem, which I think you can understand. But it is also, that's one of my challenges, right? So if you haven't run into those problems, it's hard for me to sell that contract to someone who hasn't had that problem, because they see it more of a, well, it's a product, it works for a long time. We don't need any support from this guy.
I've been in IT services since the early 2000s, playing with computers in some way, shape, or form since about 94, 95. But I would say I professionally got started in and around the year 2000. And I remember when you needed to actually know what you were doing, as opposed to being able to go Google a solution. And I've seen that descending curve over the last 20 years, where even my own customers, sometimes they just want to go onto Google to fix something, and they call us because, well, they don't have administrator privileges or they can't do certain things. And I think that eats into the quality of systems.
Yes, I agree.
So, you know, I'm happy to see that you guys are having a support contract to help people get away from that. But I feel like as long as there's a free way to do something, people will gravitate towards that until they exhaust it. And then that's when they're more apt to paying for support, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think also it's an economic thing, right? As long as they can get away with doing it without paying for it, and as long as it gives them quality enough to actually get customers for their products and tools, I understand that it is easy for them to take shortcuts and not set up support contracts because they don't need to, because they are sort of, they think they're in the clear and everything is good. Maybe it's not, because, and you know, it goes back to this entire supply chain consideration. When you build products and everything, and you have a lot of open source products, I understand that maybe you can't have support contracts with all those authors and creators of all those products and components, but maybe you should, and maybe, or you know,
Well,
do you lean on the proper set of tools here, and are they quality stuff? Right.
I would say pay you guys more support. You grow your team, and then you can support the 10 odd billion installs of curl.
Right.
How do you feel? Well, I guess with 10 billion installs, you said?
Yes. Well, it's a very rough number too,
Right.
Because I can't really tell for sure.
What, in your opinion, is the coolest or most outrageous, in a good way, use of curl that you've seen?
Well, I think one of the the coolest one that is sort of tops most of what I can come up with is that it's been used in the helicopter Mars landing in 2020. So when NASA says they use curl in the helicopter mission on Mars, that's it's hard to beat any other way.
Very cool. And again, going back to having 10 billion installs, which I think is amazing. What do you, let me phrase this correctly? A lot of people, a lot of countries are moving towards an SBOM system.
Yes.
And have you guys put anything out to have that bill of goods in the curl project?
Well, no, not really, but we are more the I don't think it's an issue for us. It's not our job to do that. We pretty much provide a component, and the ones who are actually using our component and the components they build our stuff to use, they are the ones to provide that bill of material.
Okay, I can see that.
Because we rarely provide anything at all except just a source code package. So the ones that are actually using curl, they have actually downloaded it, built it, put it together themselves, or used someone else who did it for them.
Okay. And where can someone go to get curl? For the three of you listening who don't know where to actually get curl, where do we get the library?
Everything, sort of everything curl is a book I wrote, but everything about curl is actually on curl.se, SE being the Swedish top-level domain. And if you go to everything.curl.dev, that's the book Everything Curl, which is also documents pretty much everything about curl.
Okay. And if people wanted to reach out and help support with donations, how could they do that?
Well, it's pretty easy to do that on that curl website, on curl.se. There's actually a link on the front page, and there's even a link on the front page on how to get to pay for curl support as well. So it should be really easy to figure that out on the site. And
how is support is it priced on a per opportunity basis, or is there a static rate?
We have a few different rates, but we do tend to say X number of issues during a year for a certain amount of money.
Okay.
But I mean, we're at wolfSSL, it's a small company. We're open to negotiations with whoever in whatever way. So if if you're a super mega company that have ideas about doing it in some particular way, we're always open to discussing that. But we provide a fixed set of starting point discussions. This is how we usually work with it, and it works out pretty good.
Okay. Sounds good. I mean, that's it for me, unless you have anything else you'd like to discuss.
Not at all. I'm good with this. Okay.
And how can people reach out to you if you want them to reach out to you at all?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you find me at I'm on Twitter as @Bagder, as a typoed animal, and I'm you can always find me, or if you have any sort of curl issues, you can just go to get help on the curl site and find different ways to contact us in the curl project. And usually I try to get people to not contact me privately about curl issues unless you really want to pay me for working on them, because otherwise I drown in people's personal problems, and I don't want to. I also have that problem. I don't want to be insensitive or rude to people, but when everyone sends me their private problems, it turns out I really it's a scaling problem for me.
It's a time suck, I would say.
Yeah, it is. And also this repeat problem, right? If when everyone emails me about the same issue, I just can't go on just repeating myself, saying the same thing. So I rather try to move people to actually Google for the answers first. And if you don't find them, ask in a public way so that others can answer them, or I can answer them, but more people than just you can read that answer. We have thousands of people on the mailing list, for example. So when I answer a question, a lot of other people can get that same answer at the same time. But otherwise, of course, you can contact me privately too if there's anything like that. And you can find me on daniel.hacks.sc for everything, my personal stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you again, Daniel Stenberg, creator and maintainer of cURL, for joining us. See you guys next time. Thank you.